Yo, what's good, y'all? In today's video, I'm gonna show you guys how to make RNG games, kind of using the slime RNG game as like a template. This is I'm gonna just show you guys how to make RNG games, whatnot. If you guys want more parts, just show the video, love and support, and I'll continue. All right, let's get straight into it. Okay, so as you guys know, in RNG games, you pretty much just roll for like characters. I'm gonna refer to them as units and stuff. What you refer to, like you just roll for like characters and stuff. In slime RNG, you roll for slimes. So yeah. So make sure you have the Explorer tab, the Properties tab, and the Output tab open. If you don't have those open, go up here, click Window, and then just click whatever tab you don't have open. We need Explorer to see our objects and services, Properties to see the properties of said objects, and then our Output to debug programming errors. Now, we're going to go ahead and get started with making the UI real quick, and then we will get into the coding. So I do have two sound effects. You can literally get these from the toolbox. Just click Window right here, then Toolbox, and then right here, click Audio category, or I think it's like this, or no, sorry, wrong thing. This, yeah, that. And then just go all the way down to the bottom and then just find audio, right? Then just search up like tick sound, like literally Tick, right? Because you need a sound to play when like you're like rolling, kind of like a slot machine where it's like it's showing all the possible options, and then a final tick for when you reach the final thing and stuff, right? So just go to the toolbox, get your two sounds, drag them to the sound service, and then you're good to go. Okay, so onto the UI, find stutter GUI, you're going to insert a screen GUI. By default, disable reset on spawn, rename this to be core GUI. Then we're going to go on ahead and insert a text button into said core GUI. And then I'm going to go on ahead and make this a lot smaller, so like kind of like here, put it in like the bottom of the screen. I'm going to call this the roll text button, so they're going to click this to be able to roll. Oh, that is not a button. So roll text button, right? I am going to make the color a nice darkish gray black, right? Then I'm going to go on ahead and we're going to do bold text, rich text, scale text, change the text color to kind of like a light gray, and then we're going to put the word roll. Text stroke color, or text stroke transparency will be set to 0, and I will probably make the text stroke color white, or that is not white. Yeah, something like that. So something like that. Then I just want to make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm probably just going to add UI corner stuff. We will shave off the corners. So this stuff is so like you don't have to add the corners and stuff I'm about to do. You need the button, but not like the corners. And I'm gonna add a UI stroke. We're gonna give it a nice little border. Make this white. Give it a nice little border. Um, what's the other thing? There's that. All right, and then the gradient. I'll do a gradient as well. Do something like kind of like we'll start off with this kind of gray, and then all right, yeah, we'll just leave it like that actually. Okay, there we go. We have our roll text button, right? And then now we need our frame. So let's insert a frame into core GUI. This will be our roll frame, right? Then we will drag this here, and then we will go across. So like I think like 300 by 300 should be good. So let's just do 300, right? We'll do something like this, right? We can set the background transparency for this to be we can set that to 1, right? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a frame into the roll frame. I'm just going to put this here and stuff, right? And then I'm just going to make the size, I'm going to set Y to be like 20, yeah, something like that. So just like here. Then we can just name this left frame. This is just for visual aesthetic, to be honest. I'm gonna add a UI corner into it. Shave off the corners a little bit. Boom. Right. So we have our left frame. Then I'm gonna duplicate this. So you can just right click and then press duplicate or Control plus D, really up to you. Right. And then the unit will be in the middle. And then of course you could just name this right frame. Right. And then we have our important frame, which is our unit frame. So enter that into roll frame. We're just gonna insert a frame. We're gonna put this kind of like in the middle. We can go across a little bit, and then yeah, like drag that in the middle. Okay, cool. So this is our roll frame, or sorry, not our roll frame. This is our unit frame. So information about the unit, right? So our unit frame. So for now, I may add images in the future, but for now we're just gonna have the name of the unit as well as its rarity. So background transparency. Set background transparency to 1. Then you're just going to insert a text label. We can put this at like the top, so we could set this to like be maybe no 20 is kind of okay. Maybe like 1. Yeah, we could do like 100 by 20. Yeah, that should be good stuff. But actually, even then, I think this can really be like 60 because this is our rarity. So we're gonna put this in the top left. This will be our rarity text type. But it's just gonna say like 1 in 3rd, 1 in 6, 1 in 27, like right? And then again, just bold text, rich text, scale the text, and everything. I'm gonna do white text color with text stroke color we set to black, text stroke transparency we set to 0. So something like this, and then I'm just gonna set the background transparency to 1. I'm gonna clear the default text, and then I'm just gonna duplicate this, right click, duplicate, and then I'm just gonna drag oh, well, I can't see it. Um, Very interesting. I'm going to add some text so then I can drag it. Okay, there we go. All right, and I'm just gonna put this kind of like at the bottom middle, kind of like center point, I guess you could call it. But I will make this a little bit bigger since this is the actual unit name. So you're gonna call this unit name text label. It's gonna be the name of the unit. So unit name text label. Then we could make this definitely wider, so like 100 by 30. So something like that, and I'll just drag that like right there. I can clear out the text, and we are done with our UI. Well, last thing we need to do, close all that out. Roll frame, make sure it is not visible. By default, we only want it to be visible when we're rolling for a unit. Now we can move on to the coding. Before we do that, let's create a remote event so we can communicate between the client and the server. Find replicator storage, plus icon, remote event, core event, then starter player scripts, plus icon, local scripts. We're going to rename this to be core script, in parentheses put local. We're going to delete print hello world. We're going to create some variables. First, the sound service for our sound, so ss for short is equal to game get service sound service. Then let's create a variable for our remote event. Core event is equal to game.replicated storage wait for child core event. Then let's create a variable for the players, so game.players.local player. Create a variable for our UI, of course, is equal to player.player.GUI, wait for child core GUI. And then lastly, we're going to create a table, so units is equal to special brackets. So here we're going to create a table. This is where you're going to house your units. Now for the local side, you don't really, I'm going to leave odds and stuff in, but you don't really need that. You need that more so for the server side. Literally, the only point of having the table on the client side is just simply so that you can display the names of the units. So special brackets again, then you're going to say name is equal to, and then you're going to put the name of the unit. I'm just going to put buggy. These are just some names I came up with, comma, then odds. So the chance of you getting it. So the higher, so pretty much the higher the number, the less chance you have, right? Because it's 1 in whatever the odd is. So we have a 1 in 8 chance of getting buggy. That's pretty good opposed to like a 1 in 66% chance. That's not that good, or not percent, but you get the point. Then you're just going to put a comma, and then you're just going to do the same thing. Name is equal to tropical, comma, odds is equal to 25. Now you don't have to like keep them in order. I would recommend that for readability purposes, just so like it's easy for you to find your rarest units. I'm just going to copy and paste these. That's just what I'm doing right now. I would recommend that for readability purposes, but you don't have to copy and paste. Or sorry, you don't have to copy and paste. You don't have to make sure they're in order because we're gonna automatically sort the table, but I still would recommend it. So for our other units, we have storm, earthy, so kind of the elements, blocky, very creative, I know. And then we'll just name this to lucky, right? Then we have 8, 25, and 35. And then I'll do 47, the higher the number, the rarer the unit. Then we'll do 59. Then we have 66. Cool. All right. Now let's set up our first function. So we will say core GUI dot roll text button dot activated connect function close parentheses enter. We will fire the remote event core event fire server in quotation marks roll, right? Then we will say core event dot on client event connect function in parentheses put event type comma arg1 short for argument number 1, which is just a piece of information that was sent from the client to the server, or sorry, sent from the server to the client in this case. We're going to say if event type is equal to in quotation marks roll, and so we're going to already have the result. We're just creating the illusion that it's like going through them like at this specific time. We're already going to have like whatever the result is, whatever unit they got. So we're then going to say core GUI dot roll frame dot visible is set to true. right? Then we're going to use a for loop. So we're going to say for I is equal to 1. It's going to be our starting point, 1 comma 20. Now you can change this number if you wanted to. This is how many times it's going to go through like units and stuff. If you wanted to go through 25 or 30 or 10, you can change this number. It's up to you guys. You can play around with this. Then do enter. Then we will get a random unit. So random unit is equal to units, our table that we just made, regular bracket math dot random, and then we will just say the number of units. So pretty much a number between 1 and the maximum number, and then it'll just choose a random unit, right? Then we will say core GUI dot roll frame dot unit frame dot unit name text label dot text is equal to random unit dot name. And then we can also, I actually forgot to do this, but now that I think about it, we can also do whatchamacallit, the chance of it as well. Now that I really think about it. Because we could do that. So we could just copy and paste this. So just Control C, Control V, and then just change this to rarity text label, and then you could just do random unit. Then you could just do random unit dot odds, right? And then we need to play our ticking sound for each roll. And then of course you need a delay. So task.wait 1 second and stuff. I can't really, or sorry, not 1 second, my bad. 0.05 plus I times 0.01, my bad. So yes, we're gonna use this kind of formula to calculate it so it's like kind of like slows down stuff, right? Then after the for loop, we can play the final tick because this is the actual result, whatever the player actually got, right? And then we can just do one last update. We can just copy and paste this part, Control C, Control V, right? And then this time it is result. It is result instead of yeah, it is result instead of the whatchamacallit, instead of the random unit, right? And then we will wait 3 seconds so that they can see what unit they got, and then we will set the roll frame to no longer be visible. Now we can move on to the server script. Okay, find server script service plus icon script. Rename this core script in parentheses put server. We will delete print hello world. We will create a variable for our remote event. Core event is equal to game the replicated storage wait for child core event. Then what we will do is we need that table that we made, so we can just go ahead and copy and paste. This is what I was talking about, Control C, Control V. It's more important that this version, the server side version, have the odds. We really just need the names on this version, but on the client side version, but yeah. But this is what I meant. We are then going to store the table, so we'll just say table.sort units, comma, function, in parentheses put A, comma, B, enter. Then we'll just say return A dot odds greater than B dot odds, right? We just want the table to be sorted based on the odds. So it'll pretty much be from like the easiest unit to get to the hardest unit. That's pretty much the order it's going to go in. And then now we need to add some stats. So we'll say game.players.player added connect function in parentheses put PLR, which is short for player, enter. Then we'll create a leader stats folder so we can display the amount of rolls the player, or the amount of times the player has rolled, I should say. So this is of course going to be a folder. Leader stats.name is equal to leader stats. Leader stats.parent is equal to player. Then we'll create a variable for roles. So roles is equal to instance.new number value. Roles.name is equal to roles. Roles.value by default should be 0. And then roles.parent, parent this to leader stats so we can be a visible stat, right? Then next thing we have owned units. So the units that the player currently owns are owned units. This would be a folder. So this would be folder. Owned units.name uses to keep track of all the units. Owned units.parent is equal to player, right? Then we're going to create a boolean. So is rolling. This is going to tell us essentially if the player is currently rolling, so that they can't like like spam roll while they're already rolling kind of thing. So say is rolling is equal to instance.new. It's going to be a boolean, so bool value is rolling dot name is equal to is rolling dot value by default should be set to false, and then is rolling dot parent should be set to player, right? And then after you are done with that, we can then move on to the next function. So Next function, we will say core event dot onServer event connect function. In parentheses, put PLR, which is short for player, and then event type. Enter. We will then say if event type is equal to role. This is where our main role logic occurs, right? So then we will run some checks real quick. We'll say if player dot is rolling dot value is equal to true. Enter. That means they're already rolling. We will return. If they are not, then that means they should be able to. So we will update the value. So is rolling, confirm that the player is currently rolling, right? Then after we're done with that, we will update the amount of rolls they have, or the amount of times they've rolled. That's a better way to phrase it. Rolls dot value plus equal 1, right? Then we will calculate our roll. So we'll say roll is equal to math dot random. We'll say 1 comma out of like a million kind of thing, right? But that can really be what you want it to be. Like you could do 100, 1,000. You don't have to do exactly like me. Then we will get our result, or we'll have a default result, I should say, which is units 1. So the most common unit by default, our most common unit, right? Then we use our for loop for underscore comma unit in I pairs units. Make sure it's plural. Enter. You would say if roll is less than or equal to in parentheses. You're just gonna put the exact same number you put. So I think that's like, yeah, that's a mil. So 1.0. So a mil, divide that by the units odds, right? Enter, then you'll say result is equal to units, and then obviously break, since we found ourselves a winner. Then after that, we're going to create our unit value so that we keep track of the fact that the player now owns the unit. So this will be a string value. Unit dot name will be of course equal to results name. Unit dot value is equal to, in quotation marks, is going to be, this is essentially the rarity. So we're just going to say 1 slash dot dot dot, and we'll say results odds. And then of course we will parent this to the player's own units folder, right? Then we'll fire the remote event, core event, fire client, fire this to the player, comma, this will be the role event, comma, send over the result. And then lastly, we will wait 3 seconds real quick, right? This be the exact same time as you have here so that it syncs up. And then we will allow them to roll again. Is rolling dot value is set to false. Okay, guys, so go ahead and test to make sure this works. As always, if you guys want access to any one of my scripts or models, this includes this one. Just simply read the description. Just read the description and find out how to get access to that. Okay, so if I click roll, you guys hear the sounds. You see the rarity. Right there. Oh, my bad. Actually, wait. I forgot to do something. Let's go back to the local script real quick. Let's do what we did here. We have this like slash. So let's go right here. Quotation mark. We're gonna say 1 slash dot dot dot. Do that right there and stuff. That way for the rarity, it looks like it makes more sense instead of just a random number. Okay, for some reason. Why isn't it? Oh, I see what I did. I forgot to, my bad. So we can just copy and paste this real quick. I forgot to put this right here. So I'm like, why is it not showing there? Okay, so if I roll, you see I can't roll while I'm already currently rolling at the moment. So I left this space for an image. I know it looks kind of weird, but you just put the image of the unit here. And as you guys can see, it's going through them until we arrive. And you may have to turn your volume up, but I'm pretty sure you guys can hear in the background the sound effects playing. Then when it gets to the last one and stuff, and then if we open up our own units folder, as you can see, we're keeping track of them. You could also make it to where you can only have one of a certain type of unit if you wanted, just using an if statement and stuff. But yeah, so that's how you make a RNG roll system. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to see any more mechanics from RNG games made, or if you just want to see more stuff added on to this, just other videos in general, for sure let me know in the comments. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.